What would you do with a friend that you knew that was obsessed with something that is not right?
I'm Duncan MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, born 400 years ago in the. Well, no, not really. That was a TV show called Highlander. So just listen to Rockin' at the Movies with me, Adrian Paul, and Shane Comley-White, and you'll learn some interesting facts.
Hello and welcome everybody, my name is Shane Comley-White and today we're going to be breaking down the episode 3, The Road Not Taken, the villains that come from that episode itself. So the question that I asked you was, what would you do if you had a friend that was obsessed with something that you know is actually wrong, and how would you deal with it? And that is exactly what Duncan MacLeod does with his friend here, Kim Sung. Now, if you watched the previous episode, the video about this episode itself, I break down a little bit more about what Kim Sung is doing and what he thinks is right, but I would actually say that Kim Sung is one of the most dangerous villains because he has lost sight of what humanity is, and his obsession to proving or improving something has kind of wiped out his entire humane side of himself. So he doesn't think anything of humans or mortals anymore. He just thinks that they are completely expendable and can be used to his own scientific experiments. And he uses people and tests this particular route that he's been trying to perfect to control everyone from, or to do whatever he wants them to do. And most of the time it's always a violent act, or it's or an illegal act that most probably is going to be happening with these guys that are being brainwashed or manipulated. It's not actually brainwashing, it's just more like a serum that kind of controls exactly what they're going to be doing or able to do. Takes away free will completely. They aren't able to think anymore about what's happening. It doesn't actually delve into the part where they are conscious of what's happening, but they are unable to actually control their own actions. But in my view, I don't actually think it's that point. I think they are doing what they're doing because the serum kind of overrides any kind of thought pattern, any kind of free will, any kind of normality that they're used to. And they are just doing what they are told because they become robots or super soldiers. And like I mentioned in the previous movie, previous episode, there's a lot of movies that are very similar to this. And for example, Universal Soldier with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren. I feel that is the same kind of thing, where these soldiers who should have been put to rest after dying, they are also injected with this particular serum, and they are stuck in this mind control state where they can't think anymore. They can't remember anymore. They don't have any thought patterns other than what their orders might be. Same thing here. So that's why I think he's a very, very dangerous kind of villain. When it comes to anything biological or herb-based serums, anything when it comes to a scientific alchemy of stuff, I think that's extremely dangerous. And it's almost like I don't really want to say this out like, but it's almost like a warning of don't mess around with the stuff because things can go badly wrong. And we've experienced it in the last few years, around 2019, 20, we experienced a hectic time in our world. The entire world experienced this during the COVID lockdowns, and it impacted how we were living. But that's just because of a disease. Now imagine a scientifically created thing that is designed to control your mind, control your own free will. That is very dangerous and very scary. So that's why Kim Sung, I would say, not only for his many, many hundreds of years lifespan and all the fighting and all the skill that he might have had and accumulated by then, but the alchemy and the science world that he's living in is a dangerous one. It's not a one that's going to improve humanity. It's actually going to destroy humane abilities. So I do think that he's a little bit of a dangerous guy. But then you do get his very deadly disciple, if you want to call him that, and that's Chu Lin. Now this is, if you take Kim Sung, he's more of the fantasy bad guy. If you take Chu Lin, he is the real bad guy that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, and that is greed. And that is someone who wants power, and that is someone who is money hungry, and that's someone that wants to use people to their benefit. And I also, I believe that these two characters together are extremely bad compared to the rest of the other immortals that Duncan has to deal with, because of their own selfish natures to benefit whatever they want. It's not about the greater good. It's only about who they are and what they want and why they can actually do it. So, my view, in my opinion, what's yours? My opinion is these two are actually the worst kind of villains so far that we have seen. But wait, there's still going to be more down the line. So just a little bit of a breakdown on who Kim Sung is. He comes from the old Chinese dynasty where they believe in all this magic and alchemy of scientific experiments, but there's still that whole old element of the traditional sword fighting, and he uses one of those traditional Chinese swords, beautiful swords. And if you go look at Milan, it kind of depicts the kind of sword that he's using there. It's a double-edged blade, and I can imagine if he grew up, or if he was in that era before he died his tragic death and became immortal, he must have been one of the soldiers or the king's guards or anything else like that. Watching how he kind of lives and the lavish life that he's got, it almost looks like that's where he came from. And so the skill that they must have had back then as these soldiers, because that was their life. They used to wake up in the morning, go train, go to war, come back, deal with that on a day-to-day basis. That was their life. They would live battle, they would live training, they would live that discipline of actually learning how to protect themselves and also fight for their emperor. And it's a typical martial arts vibe and mindset. And I come from the martial arts world. I've been training for many, many years. And so I understand the discipline that goes with it. And when it comes to the sword fighting, which I also do, I do more of the katana side of the sword, obviously inspired by, or I was inspired by Highlander, and that's why I wanted to get into the sword training itself in the martial arts world. So he lived that, and I think that's also why his entire story or life is based around the discipline on perfecting this particular thing now, which is now the scientific experiment that he's dealing with. So he almost pushes away the need to train. He lives in a monastery or a temple, which is classified as holy ground, and obviously immortals can't challenge you there. So he's isolated himself to a space where the threat is gone, so he can now focus on what he needs to do, and that is creating this particular root or perfecting this particular isotope or the root from the root that he's actually dealing with, or the herbs. But he's just never able to do it. Now, Chu Lin being his disciple, living in the same monastery or the same holy ground space or temple, he was the disciple who was obviously helping him create this isotope, doing all the study and the research to be able to perfect this particular isotope itself. And obviously, when it comes to human nature and some people's weaknesses when it comes to greed and power and individual value, he saw the value in this particular item, and he kind of said, okay, I'm going to sell this, or I'm going to use it to my own ability, or I'm going to see what I can benefit from it. So he never knew what his train of thought was. But in the movie itself, in the episode itself, it shows that he sees the value in how this can control people, and he's using that control to benefit his own growth, financial growth or power or status growth. So he's not an honorable person. And a lot of the times when you look at the old Chinese world or Japanese world, or even the Scottish and the British and all that, there's a lot of honor that comes from warriors. So this guy, you'd think he grew up with a warrior from the Chinese dynasty, so you'd think there'd be honor, especially in the world of the monks. There's a lot of honor in that sense, but he doesn't have that. So he breaks away from that space or that environment and that temple, and he then goes on his own path to try gain as much as he can to have the power that he's been craving. And he uses this isotope, he steals it, and he uses it to trick people to take it, or by tricking people to drink this particular isotope, he manipulates people a lot. So he's a coward. I really think that Chulin is a coward, and he uses mind control to get what he wants without even telling the people. If you want to call the people, I'm going to say that they're almost like lab rats that get tricked into taking this particular substance to benefit him down the line. So I definitely do believe that these guys are very dangerous villains in the entire Highlander series, sometimes overlooked because they're not the flashy sword fighting guys. They don't have to follow the rules of the game because they're not part of the game anymore. And especially Chulin, he's not even in the game. He's just a normal mortal. But when Kim Sun challenges Duncan, he's not impressive because he's lost his skills towards the end. And he's lost his ability to fight, or it looks like he's lost his ability to fight. But ultimately, Duncan does kind of defeat him, not to the point of killing him, but he does defeat him. So it's very interesting to see how the mindset of the human nature, whether you're immortal or mortal, is kind of brought into this. Like, what do you want? And ultimately, for the two of them, it's ultimate power. Duncan, on the other hand, is protection. He's protecting Richie. He's protecting the rest of the people around that could be brainwashed to becoming these lab rats. So he is a bodyguard for humanity. He is a savior in a way, not in a religious way. He's just kind of like a savior for all the people around him, but unwillingly forced to play this game that he doesn't actually want to do, like we saw in episode 1. But now he also has to make choices, and this is why it's the road less taken, or the road not taken is the name of the episode. Which choice do you need to make, or does he need to make, with regards to his friend? Does he kind of step back and let his friend do what he wants to do, and that's Chulin? Does he let him do, Kim Sun? Does he let him do what he needs to do and just continue on this path of creating these dangerous isotopes? Or does he kind of confront him, battle him, to kind of step his way towards the ultimate good, which is to try to protect humanity? That's what he's trying to do. And that's why I feel that Highlander is a great story to teach people of how to be a good person, how to battle your demons, how to stand up to something that is not right, how to make the right choices, and ultimately to be the best kind of person that you can be, even though you are faced with such difficult situations and difficult choices and difficult opportunities that you got to decide which is going to be the right one or the wrong one. And even though we're not immortals, and I'd love to be an immortal, even though we're not, we're still kind of battling ourselves as well. We're part of a game which is not always that easy. We still got to battle each other for the best jobs. You know, I want a job here, I'm going to battle for that position. So who's going to win our game? So yeah, quite interesting. I really do enjoy this episode as well. It was quite nice to see another cultural influence coming into it, and that is the Chinese culture. Especially coming from a martial arts background, I really look up to and look forward to seeing a lot of the Chinese, the Korean, and the Japanese cultures itself, especially the weapons that go with it. So yeah, have you trained any weapons before when it comes to any kind of martial arts weapons or traditional weapons? And if so, what have you trained? Looking forward to seeing what your comments might be. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got a lot of episodes coming out. I'm going to be talking a lot of stuff the whole way through. So if you're enjoying the content that I'm giving you, I'd appreciate a comment and a like and a follow and a subscribe, and to share this amongst all of your friends who are Highlander fans. Like I say, there's a lot of information that's going to be coming up very soon, and we're going to be uploading some of the interviews with the actors, and I think you're going to like them. If you have not yet seen it, please go watch the interview that I did with Adrian Paul, who is Duncan MacLeod, the one and only, and see his take on what he experienced and how he enjoyed his time as Duncan MacLeod. Thanks so much, everybody. Cheers, bye.